What would be the first name that comes into your mind if somebody asks you to name the most famous queen ever? Well, you may think of now sadly gone Queen Elizabeth II, or her no less remarkable long-standing predecessor Queen Victoria, yet I'm sure the name of Marie Antoinette will still make it to the top 3. Her destiny is truly mind-blowing. A young beauty coming from Austria, she seemed to have everything to win the hearts of the crowd. Yet somehow they all turned against her, and that's how the famous and utterly cruel French Revolution began. No wonder it became a plot for the numerous cultural depictions based on her life. In this video, we shall look at the 8 most outstanding ones, from the oldest to the newest, and rank the best ones that are really worth your history-inspired evening. So, let's begin. Just like with every once real, now legendary personage of the past, the image of Marie Antoinette has been veiled with tons of mysteries, rumors, and pure inventions for the sake of drama. The same happens to the movies about her. The Oscar-nominated 1938 Marie Antoinette featuring Norma Shearer stands somewhere in the middle on the scale from pure fiction to historical accuracy. Curiously, it was in fact based upon the 1932 book about the Queen by the Austrian Stefan Zweig. Named Marie Antoinette, the portrait of an average woman, it became a perfect example of the newly changed opinion of the personality of the Queen and her true role in history. You see, during the reign of her husband, King Louis XVI, public opinion gravitated towards strong disapproval of the Austrian, as they called Marie Antoinette. This trend aggravated in the revolutionary decade by the end of the 18th century and more or less dominated the whole 19th century. In other words, back then, people used to think of her as an extravagant and foolish foreigner who ruined France.
You see, I've never walked the streets of Paris, but I'm sure you could tell me something about that.
And then, looks like enough time has passed to heal the trauma, and in the 20th century they started to assess her through a much more sympathetic lens. So indeed, in that 1938 movie, the Canadian-American star Norma Shearer does play Marie Antoinette as the average woman, highlighting her traits of an unhappy wife and still a very loving and caring mother. This was a complete novelty for the time. It covers the rather large period of Marie Antoinette's life, from her being a 14-year-old Austrian archduchess that would soon marry the future King of France, up until the horrific death at the scaffold. Amusingly, it pays particular attention to her so-to-say competition with the notorious Jeanne du Barry, then the chief mistress of Marie Antoinette's father-in-law, King Louis XV. Again, don't miss a whole video about her on my channel.
So that's it. I'm dead, eh? Not good enough for your high and mightiness. Oh, but no, madame. Royalty loves an occasional roll in the gutter, don't they, Grandpapa?
It also introduces the mysterious Swedish Count Axel Fersen, whose alleged intimate relationship with the Queen was revealed after the publication of their secret correspondence. And yes, the screenwriters also managed to pack inside the loud story of the stolen diamond necklace, which I told you about in previous episodes. As a result, the film could be taken as an almost complete guide on the major events in the life of the Queen, yet obviously overly romanticized, fictionalized, and all in all too liberal on the scale of historical accuracy. However, this didn't prevent it from getting 4 Oscar nominations, including Norma Shearer's for the Best Actress. It didn't bring any of them home, yet enjoyed the overall success among viewers on both sides of the Atlantic. Despite the impressive box office, the film producers filed a loss from its production, since hardly any profit could have compensated for the really impressive budget of over 2 million, about 43 million in today's value, which placed Marie Antoinette among the most expensive movies of the 1930s. In particular, no costs have been spared on the costumes created for the film. they have remained among the most expensive in film history ever since. Interestingly, they were then reused multiple times in other period dramas to offset the costs for their creation, and many have survived in private and public collections until our days. Unlike several future productions, this first Marie Antoinette movie has even built its own Versailles and filled it with antique furniture imported from France. Well, not the entire palace was re-erected, of course, yet the main ballroom, for example. It is a rather amusing fact that spending on decoration and costumes that were brought in to enhance the historical accuracy of the picture, well, it all had quite the opposite impact. As a result, the movie had to remain in black and white, despite initial plans to make it in color, due to the lack of the already enormously bloated budget. Then, in 1956, there was this fabulous, yet now somewhat forgotten European film, Marie Antoinette, the Queen of France, featuring the shining star of the French drama, Michèle Morgan. Or Michèle Morgan. She was also engaged in Hollywood, so perhaps you are well familiar with her works. Here, everything begins with King Louis XV at his deathbed, feeling worried for his grandson and his unstable wife, whom he's going to pass over the crown. Again, we would meet Count Fersen, and he would be pictured as the constant third party in this doomed marriage. Another naming of the film is Shadow of the Guillotine, and with the scaffold it all ends. I was in doubt whether I should include this movie in this retrospective, yet the fact that it did receive the nomination for the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival convinced me it was worth it. Basically, the whole film elaborates on the internal struggles of the Queen, torn between her loyalty to the king and her passion to Fersen. Curiously, it has a huge cast and main historical characters are present, yet guess what? They didn't find a place for Marie Antoinette's closest friend ever, Princess de Lamballe. Looks like that they decided that the party-beast Duchess of Polignac is well enough to carve the character of the Queen. How sad! Lamballe is immensely important in Marie Antoinette's life, and I even made a whole video about their relationship. Let's now jump several decades ahead and have a look at the 7-hour two-part French-US movie La Révolution Française, or the French Revolution, which was released in 1989 for the 200-year anniversary of the French Revolution. Both parts were shot simultaneously and both in separate French and English versions. Amazingly, the role of Marie Antoinette was given to the celebrated British actress Jane Seymour, who was yet to become the crowd favorite Dr. Queen medicine woman. Have you watched that American series in the 90s? Oh, I did. When I was a kid, I remember being glued to TV with my granny when they aired these episodes. Back to Marie Antoinette. The very titles of the parts of this movie give a hint to the portrayed time period. The first one is called The French Revolution, Years of Hope, and the second, The French Revolution, Years of Rage. This way, it turned out to be a chronicle of the revolution from the calling of the État Général in 1789 until the end of the Jacobin Terror in 1794. Here again, producers managed to secure an immense budget of $50 million. Right now, it would feel like 2.5 times more. It made it the most expensive French film at the time. Luckily, the French government issued extensive support and even authorized the loan of army and navy units for the battle sequences. The critics generally praised the celebrated international cast and their acting, especially when it came to male characters. Alas, the public didn't seem to enjoy it that much, and the movie box office was a disappointment. Nevertheless, it was still a rather accurate historical portrayal of the sequence of the revolutionary events and the life of the royal couple and those close to them at the epoch. I found it available on YouTube with English subtitles, and it certainly looks to be a rather powerful and solid production. That year, 1989, there was released another remarkable European incarnation of Marie Antoinette on screen, played by the German Ute Lemper. The movie was named with the Queen's behind-the-back nickname, l'Autrichienne, the Austrian in English. It was also made to commemorate the bicentennial of the Revolution. Unlike the previously mentioned pictures, this film concentrates on the last days of Marie Antoinette, showing her trial and execution. In fact, that is what makes the film a real gem. Its script is based on the real minutes from the trial of the Queen, so the movie turned out to be sort of a closed hearing with scenes of the trial and at the Conciergerie prison in Paris, with the addition of some flashback sequences. Film's director and screenwriters made an extensive research, and as a result we could enjoy a truly historically accurate plot and a very moving rendering of the real-life personages. The acting of Ute Lemper was particularly praised among critics, who often put it above Norma Shearer, Michèle Morgan and James Seymour. Perhaps her being a native German, now speaking French, made the image of the Austrian-born queen compelling as never before.
Quelles sont les accusations qui risquent de faire le plus d'impression sur les jurés? Monsieur Chevaux-Lagarde?
5 et 4.
C'est ma vie qui est en péril.
3.
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find an English translation of the movie, but even if you don't speak French, you could feel the presence of Marie Antoinette, I'm sure. Another English actress, Jolie Kim Richardson, played the role of the Queen in the American movie The Affair of the Necklace in 2001. Those who are familiar with this real-life mystery of the stolen, most expensive diamond necklace ever would remember that despite the accusations of her opinionated contemporaries at the time, Marie Antoinette wasn't the key mastermind behind this deal. If you don't know what I'm talking about, we've got you covered. There's a whole video about it on my channel. So, here the main part of the notorious Madame de la Motte was played by the American Hilary Swank. As usual, they invested heavily in the costumes and decoration. They even filmed some scenes directly at Versailles and got a nomination for Oscar for Best Costumes. Yet the movie still flopped and received negative reviews from critics, largely because of the doubtful fit of Swank. Richardson was chosen for the role thanks to her visual resemblance to Marie Antoinette. To tell the truth, I haven't found any particular accolades toward her in that role.
It is a phenomenon. Still, I decline.
The film itself has definitely polarized the public. I would say that it is well worth watching to discover this captivating story of mind-blowing deceit, and then watch my video to check what actually happened in reality. Now tell me, is there anyone who still didn't watch Marie Antoinette with Kirsten Dunst? I tell you the truth, I watched it only something like a month ago and was immensely impressed. The film was written and directed by Sofia Coppola and was released back in 2006. This time, Marie Antoinette got her Oscar for costume design, and a well-deserved it was. The plot was based on the book Marie Antoinette, The Journey, another biography of the Queen, now by Antoine Fraser. It is a rather sympathetic look at the personality of the Queen and the times and circumstances she found herself in. The fact that most of the scenes were filmed exactly where they happened, directly at Versailles, adds up to the overall feeling that we are plunged into the past and see the events not in the theatrical setting with actors playing, but rather like living through all of that with Marie Antoinette's eyes. As often happens with ambitious and loud projects, critics were polarized. Some said it was too sympathetic for the regime, some felt it was simply politically incorrect, some didn't get the modern camera work and soundtrack, and some applauded the daring liberty of the director. It is not a lesson of history. It is an interpretation documented but carried by my desire for covering the subject differently, said Coppola in one of the interviews. My personal reaction was the following. During and right after watching it, I was left speechless. I have carefully studied the life of Marie Antoinette before that and was totally surprised to see her in this Hollywood movie exactly how I pictured her in my head, with all those internal conflicts that had been tearing her apart, with all that controversy behind her image among the French people and her true self at home in Trianon. And yes, I had no particular expectations for the performance of Dunst, yet in the end I found it straight to the point and utterly convincing. Am I subjective? Sure, you may always say how I'm wrong down there in the comments. The film did have a huge drawback in my eyes, yet it doesn't concern the role of Marie Antoinette. I simply laughed at the ridiculous interpretation of the character of Jeanne du Barry. Just utterly cliched it is. I don't blame the actress though, she was eventually acting the way they told her to.
Look at du Barry. What is she wearing now? She can't pass a mirror without seducing it.
Do you think she's wearing enough jewelry?
Never enough for du Barry.
There were a couple of other actresses who have put on the famous à la frégate wig of Marie Antoinette in recent years. Another German actress, Diane Kruger, appeared in the French drama Farewell, My Queen. Although it might be tempting to compare her to Dunst, her performance and the movie as a whole is totally different and presents quite an unusual perspective on just one of the episodes from the last years of the Queen's life. So, there is this Sidonie Laborde, played by Léa Seydoux, who is a servant to Marie Antoinette. When the whole revolutionary turmoil unfolds, the Queen orders that one of her closest friends, the Duchess of Polignac, flee the country and this way save her life. The role of the latter was masterfully performed by the French Virginie Ledoyen. In the film, they decided to step on that shaky ground of deliberate implication of their more than friendly relationship. Was that true in reality? I elaborated on that in my video about Queen's friends. So that servant was ordered to dress up as the Duchess and vice versa, and that's how they tried to execute this daring plan. In other words, we now see Marie Antoinette through the eyes of her loyal servant and with the perspective of her highly intimate personal relationship and its abrupt end at the dawn of the revolution. Curious, right? The movie has some art house vibes, so yeah, bravo for finally something new than just another interpretation of the historic events of the past. And again, they omitted the character of Princess de Lamballe. I think she deserves a whole movie dedicated to her. And let the young German actress Pauline Pollmann become the last but not the least in my shortlist of the best Marie Antoinette portrayals on screen. She became the teenager newcomer in the French court in this year's premiere at Cannes Film Festival, the movie by and with Maïwenn and Johnny Depp, Jeanne du Barry. Her role here is just a supporting character, yet I may happily proclaim that she definitely succeeded in delivering the personality of the yet shy, but still already showing her teeth Austrian newbie in Versailles.
Merci. Entschuldigung, wann beginnen wir mit dem Essen? Ich habe Hunger.
Madame, la dauphine a faim. Pourriez-vous m'indiquer quand elle sera servie?
Lorsque le roi sera présent.
Bien sûr. Oui.
Einverstanden.
Merci.
Merci, merci.
So, time to select the top 3 actresses who carved their names in history, if not alongside Marie Antoinette herself, yet definitely being mentioned among her most relatable incarnations on screen. You know what? Marie Antoinette herself changed dramatically over the course of her quarter of a century at the top of French society. One wouldn't recognize the joyful and trouble-free young girl in the devastated queen in prison, still keeping her dignity even at the scaffold. So perhaps different actresses are better suited for her role at different ages. I thought the best Dauphine was Pauline Pollmann. Then the German Ute Lemper was impeccable in picturing the Queen in the last days of her life at the trial. I'd give another German, Diane Kruger, the second silver medal. So that Lemper's one is for the historically accurate film and Kruger's for almost pure fiction. And Kirsten Dunst, in my eyes, managed to perfectly convey the gradual change in Marie Antoinette. In the beginning, she's a perfect girly Dauphine, then the desperate yet still joyful queen, dreaming and hoping for the best, yet sadly understanding that the odds are low. And would you agree with me here? Share your opinion in the comments. Have a great day. Bye!